The unseen priests of the long rifle, or as they are more commonly known, sniper priests, are a breed apart from typical servants of the church. The supreme exemplars of their deadly craft, they slay their foes from afar with unerringly accurate bullets from their precision-crafted rifles. What makes these warriors of God unique from other sharpshooters in the war against hell is that each has habitually blinded themselves as part of their devotions in preparation for taking up the black scapular of the Passion. Just in the Levant alone, there are several sniper orders, the most notable of which are those of Saint Sebastian, Saint Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrows, and Saint Ludmilla of Bohemia. Each order has its own unique traits and specializations in weapons, tactics, and holy ammunition, based on the doctrines and miracles of their founder. Each aspirant who hopes to have a prophetic grace bestowed upon them does so with a heart that recognizes such gifts are not intended to edify and exhort the individual, but the faithful as a whole. A priest gifted with such a prophetic grace can see fractionally into the future, and is thus aware of precisely where their targets will be, allowing them to shoot with pinpoint accuracy. Of course, there is many a slip twixt cup and lip, and the vagaries of war mean that even the greatest sniper is not infallible. The most renowned sharpshooters in the war are those of paramount fate, men and women who know that every time they squeeze the trigger, they lessen the presence of evil in the world. In addition to the many standard weapons available to them, each sniper priest bears a long rifle that is as much a holy relic as it is a weapon, a divinely inspired instrument of death crafted by the most sought-after gunsmiths in the world. Many such weapons are said to have been blessed by saintly figures of history and have been in the possession of their order for many decades. Entire armies have fought to bloody ruin to recover such weapons upon the death of a sniper priest, and the now lost order of Saint Mercurius, the father of two swords, detonated its catacomb magazines to destroy its monastery foundry, rather than allow its armory to fall into heretic hands when the walls of Escantos fell. Conventional sniper rifles often incorporate magnifying rangefinders, but the weapons of the sniper priests are frequently crafted with relics of the order's patron saint, such as those crafted by the foundries of Saint Sebastian, which mount scopes without lenses, but which contain bone shards of their patron saint. The relics of Saint Sebastian are said to make their bullets even deadlier against the plague carriers of the Black Grail, while the veiled snipers of Saint Ludmilla of Bohemia can witness their targets through walls of solid stone, and are even said to be able to shoot around corners. The rifles of Saint Gabriel are potent against the bestial servants of hell, able to punch through the thickest of hides and armoured bone. In the field, a sniper priest is often swathed in the black scapular of the Passion, a blessed cloak that serves to obscure their presence on the battlefield, and which can sustain them for inordinately long periods without food or water. A heretic could pass within inches of a concealed sniper priest and never know they were there. One story in particular tells of a mysterious sniper priest known as Shepherd Sugitani, one of the resurrected order of Nigoro Shu, and his famed Kunitomo rifle, who slew the Coral Triumvirate with a single bullet at a range of 3 miles during the siege of St. Lux. When a sniper priest takes to the field of battle, the first warning heretic forces have of their presence is when their diabolical leaders start dying with sanctified bullets punching through their skulls. Many a warband of New Antioch pinned down in no man's land has been saved by the deadly accuracy of the hitherto unseen presence of a sniper priest, throwing the servants of hell into disarray before the resurgent soldiers of the faithful. Now, there's additional new lore for the Sniper Priest released by Trench Crusade during the week, and one of the things that makes this lore so interesting is it wasn't written by Tuomas. It was written by Graham McNeil. Graham McNeil, who wrote the story from the main rulebook, and who obviously many people know from Warhammer 40k and things of that nature. This is, now, don't quote me on this, but as far as I'm aware, this is the first kind of shift that we're seeing in where this lore is coming from. We had the Lady Immaculata lore come from Andy Chambers way back when, but this is our first kind of shift in a while into lore that hasn't been produced by Tuomas. And that means some things, basically, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. But for now, we're going to run through some phrases and places and things that were mentioned over the course of the lore, because there's some pretty interesting stuff in this one. So the real interesting thing, basically, is the listed orders that were given. So the Order of Sebastian. Sebastian was an early Christian saint, and he was a martyr. He was killed during the Diocletianic persecution of Christians. He was initially tied to a post or tree and shot with arrows, though that didn't kill him. If anybody wants to read a book called Between Two Fires, there's a really, I think, interesting appearance of Saint Sebastian in that book. I thought it was pretty good. He was, according to tradition, rescued and healed by Irene of Rome, which became a popular subject in 17th century paintings. In all versions of the story, shortly afterwards, he went to warn, basically, somebody about their sins, the guy who had initially tried to kill him, strangely enough, and as a result was clubbed to death, so not the smartest move in the world. And he's venerated in the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church as the patron saint of athletics, archery, and plagues. And in this lore, we see that he's a sniper saint, so the archery works in there, and the plagues, his guys are particularly effective against the Black Grail. That's a nice little touch. Okay, so Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrows. He was an Italian Passionist, and Passionists were a Catholic religious congregation founded by St. Paul of the Cross in Italy in 1720, and they were dedicated to preaching the passion of Jesus as God's love, and they really focused in on the charitable works aspect of things, on ministry and retreats and supporting the poor and the marginalized and things of that nature. So this guy is quite an interesting one because of the way his life went, I guess. He was pretty kind of a rich kid for his time. He was born to a professional family, and he gave up that notion to join the Passionist congregation. He wasn't apparently extraordinary in many ways, but he was perfect in following the rules of the congregation, and he was known for his tremendous devotion to his holy life, basically. He died from tuberculosis at the age of 23. And he was canonized in 1920. So this is one of those times where the timeline jumps a bit. So basically, this is where it gets very interesting. He was considered the patron saint of Catholic youth, of students, and of those studying for the priesthood. So in a way, you could see, based off this kind of lore that's given, you could see those who wishing to become sniper priests, or those who had the calling to become sniper priests, feeling like they needed to be perfect, that their efforts had to be absolutely perfect. And that's what this guy was all about. Pasenti proved an excellent student, and his excellence in the academic life was only outdone by the great progress he was making in his spiritual life. At the same time, Pasenti began to display the first symptoms of tuberculosis. The news didn't worry him, apparently. He didn't care that he was getting sick with tuberculosis. In fact, he actually was quite happy because he had prayed for a slow death so that he could prepare himself spiritually for what was going to occur. Throughout his illness, he apparently remained very cheerful, and he did not waver at all in his habits and in his faith and all that kind of stuff. He was a source of great edification and inspiration to his fellow students, apparently, and they would seek to spend time with him at his deathbed. He proved himself an exemplary religious and a perfect follower of the Passionist rule. So, a very interesting guy. This is one of the things that I really like. This is maybe where he ties into the sniper priest mentality, right? Why perhaps the devs picked this one. on his deathbed, he ordered his spiritual writings to be burnt, for he feared they would tempt him to pride. Only his letters survived, alongside his resolutions, which mapped the spiritual progress he made in his few years as a passionist. Now, that might play in to the bit of the lore where it talks about the gift of sight, of a little bit of foresight, how that kind of thing cannot be seen as a gift for the priest, but rather a gift for all of mankind. So that might be why he was picked, because he's representative of eschewing that concept of pride the way the sniper orders are supposed to, the way these sniper priests are supposed to. Each aspirant who hopes to have a prophetic grace bestowed upon them does so with a heart that recognizes such gifts are not intended to edify and exhort the individual, but the faithful as a whole. So it might have been that tremendous spirit there of this particular saint that they just went with for that reason. I don't know. Okie dokie. So Ludmilla of Bohemia. This is an interesting one. So she was a Czech saint and martyr venerated by Catholic and Orthodox Christians, and she was the grandmother of Saint Wenceslas, who is widely referred to as Good King Wenceslas. Saint Ludmilla was canonized shortly after her death. As part of the process of canonization, in 1925, Wenceslas removed her remains to St. George's Basilica in Prague. Now, this is the one I can't quite put together, if I am honest. She was murdered due to Wenceslas's mom basically being jealous of her influence, and hilariously is now considered the patron saint of people who have trouble with their in-laws. But this is the one that ties in the least directly, I guess, to the skills described of being able to see through walls, unless they mean that like kind of true sight element of being able to see the threat that's coming to you no matter what is in the way. Perhaps, I'm honestly not sure, but that was really all I could find. So if you know something about Ludmilla of Bohemia that ties into this lore, please let me know. Now, the Order of Saint Mercurius was mentioned as well, the father of two swords. He was a Roman soldier of Scythian descent who became a Christian saint and martyr. He was born in the city of Eskintos, which is described here. It's the city that fell. His fortifications fell basically in Cappadocia, which is Eastern Asia Minor or modern-day Turkey. And according to Christian tradition, he was the soldier who killed Julian the Apostate during his campaign in Persia. So yeah, he's widely known in Arabic as Abu Sifain, which means the wielder of two swords, referring to the second sword given to him by Archangel Michael. So yeah, there you go. His parents were converts to Christianity, and I guess that is how he was raised as a Christian. And when he grew to adulthood, he enlisted in the Roman army in the reign of Emperor Decius. He gained a great reputation among his superiors as a swordsman and a tactician in many battles. So it makes perfect sense that that kind of individual would result in this like big order, and that order would also be kind of so firm as to essentially sacrifice itself rather than allow heretics to get their hands on their goodies. Now, the biggest mention, I guess, in this entire piece of lore is actually the shepherd Sugetani, one of the resurrected order of Nagoro Shu, and his famed Kunitomo rifle. This is pretty big because it's really our first in-lore reference to Japan and the kind of things that might be happening over there. However, this pretty clearly implies that this guy made his way to the Levant. The siege of St. Lux, as far as I'm aware, did not happen in Japan. So this guy was over kind of in our current theater of war, basically, when all this happened. One thing I do find very interesting, and I've no idea when this guy was in operation or what it was that he was up to or anything like that, but the name Sugetani appears to be a reference to Sugetani Zenjubo, who was a Japanese sniper who was well known for the assassination attempt on Oda Nobunaga during the Sengoku period. I'm assuming even me, like, Oda Nobunaga pops up so much in so much of Japanese games that I play. I'm going to assume everybody kind of knows about that. So yeah, I'm assuming the name is a reference there, and that is quite interesting. And then the Nagoro Shu were an order of warrior monks that were famous for their skill with firearms, so makes complete sense, as well as more traditional weapons. So it's a fun little thing to have in here, and it also says that they were resurrected, like the resurrected order. So in 1585, the temple was burned to the ground, but it would seem that in the Trench Crusade world, they're back, and they're in the Levant, they're in the theater of war, and they're kicking ass. So that's pretty huge, I feel. Now, one of the reasons why I think this is actually pretty big lore and it matters quite a lot is not just because of all this stuff, but the fact that Graham McNeil wrote it, and we're seeing some huge power creep in the lore. I want you to think about for a second here that sniper priests were blind. That was their thing. They were blind, and they shot their bullets, and their bullets landed. Now we have sniper priests doing the Wanted thing, that movie, bending shit around walls. They're capping Black Grail with ease. They're punching rounds through the thickest armor and armored bone. More importantly, they have the Black Scapular, which helps them basically survive without food and water. It means that they can't be seen. But the biggest thing is essentially these guys have a little bit of future sight, which, according to the lore of other units, the observers have to go through absolute hell to keep that, and can explode at any moment if their brain picks up the wrong vibration, and it's slowly killing them or quickly killing them depending on the day, and requires a lifetime of dedication to be able to do, and a very special helmet. And now sniper priests can just do it. You know, they can just see where their target is for a couple, you know, for a second. I think it was a split second before they know where they're there, and as far as I know, that's about the window that the observers have as well. So that's a pretty big lore creep, and a power creep within the lore, and I would expect this to keep happening. So why did we get Sniper Priest lore? We got Sniper Priest lore because the Sniper Priests became available in plastic. So that's why we got the lore. But if each time something becomes available in plastic, we get this power creep, which is likely to happen because there's this strong temptation when you're fleshing out the lore of things to make them more powerful than they were when you got to them. It's something that writers will just do kind of naturally. You want to put your stamp on the thing, you want to give it some ability, you want to build it out somehow, and normally the way you build things out is to make them a little bit more powerful lore-wise. So it seems that we're going to get into an interesting arms race, I think, in the world of Trench Crusade, as stuff essentially just gets more and more powerful as it's built up and goes into plastic. And we get these lore expansions potentially with each one that comes out. Now, I don't know for sure that that's what's going to happen, but like it happened this time, and this is the only time we have as an example. So we'll just watch out in the future and see what happens. Okay, that's it for this video. I have stuff to do today, so I really got to get this thing put together. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, like the video only if you actually liked the video. Feel free to keep your subscriptions feeds free of AI slop and improve the quality of your lives. And go check out my collab with CreatureCaster, which will be going live on Monday. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.